This is Monday, February the 1st. This is World History. Well, last week we looked at the French and the challenges that the French went through following the exiling of Napoleon. Today we're going to look at the Germans. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte had taken over pretty much all of what were called the German duchies during the Napoleonic War. After the Napoleonic Wars, during the Congress of Vienna, the leader of Prussia, which is one of the biggest German states, is going to try to let the German-speaking people get more of an identity. He hoped that they would unify. Now, here is a map of the area that is in question. Now, this area right in here is what we would be calling Germany. Now, all of the people speak the German language, and as far as the Austrians are concerned, and that would be this area right in here, they have traditionally controlled all of this area. But now, the German duchies have an idea that they would be better served if they could rule themselves. Now, the Napoleonic Wars saw most of the German duchies adopt a continental system. A continental system is an economic system, and it basically favored the French over the German duchies. And it was disastrous to the German duchies for their economy. So the first thing the German duchies are going to do is they're going to scrap the continental system and try to come up with an economic system that would benefit the German duchies. Now, the spearhead of this was Prussia. Those Germans who were in and around Berlin were called Prussians. And the Prussians had been the Prussians had defeated part of Napoleon's army at Leipzig, and they, along with the British, had defeated Napoleon at Waterloo. Now, the Prussian business leaders began to exert an economic interest over the other German duchies. So Prussia becomes the dominant economic force. Now, Prussia itself was very conservative, and it felt that government and money should be balanced. Over time, the German in Prussia are going to begin to exert influence over the other duchies. Now, a German who has financial dealings is called a Junker. Now remember, in the German language, J's are pronounced more like Y's. Now, a Junker is a merchant. He is in a trade organization called the Zollverein. Now, a Zollverein is an organization composed of various Junkers from a particular German duchy. Now, Prince William from Prussia is going to be asked to be the emperor of all of the various Zollvereins in all of the various German duchies. But William is going to turn this down. William is saying that if the aristocrats in the German duchies are not for him, then he sees no need to be emperor of this land. William wants to be asked not only by the Junkers, but asked by the aristocrats. The German duchies have a class system that was in effect. Now, a class system would be the aristocracy. and the aristocracy believed that they were better off than those who had money. Now, we had the exact same situation occur 200 years earlier in Great Britain during the British Revolution. Who is better, the Stuarts, the aristocrats, or the commoners, the people who have money and pay taxes? Now, we all know how that turned out. The economic unity and prosperity of Germany is going to call for political unity. Now, in the 1860s, this would be during the time of Emperor Napoleon III of France. Otto von Bismarck, a Junker from Prussia, is going to propose a unified Germany. Now, Bismarck is able to unify the aristocrats and the Junkers together, and this time Frederick William will become the leader, and he will agree to name Bismarck his prime minister. Now, this form of government is going to change, though, in just a little bit. The German duchies had been warring with each other for several hundred years. Now, the argument over religion was always that which caused the greatest number of problems. The southern duchies were made up mostly of Catholics. The northern duchies were made up mostly of Protestants, Lutherans. Now, on this map, the bluish areas to the north are areas that are heavily Protestant. The areas to the bottom that are greens or reds or yellows are areas that are Catholic. Now, these areas that are green or reddish or yellow, they had always been part of the Austrian Empire. But they speak a language that is different than most Austrians, and there is a great mountain chain right here that separates the Germans and the Austrians. Now, this area right up in here is a flat plain-like area, and this is an area where the people are unified primarily by the Lutheran faith. The unification is going to begin to put the religious beliefs on hold. Now, this would be a good example of nationalism. Even though you are Protestant and I am Catholic, or I am Protestant or you are Catholic, I think it's for the best that we unify our country. Now, there are some Catholics, there are some Protestants who cannot put aside their beliefs. And starting in the late 1700s and all the way through the 1800s, these Protestants and Catholics who could not put nationalism aside are going to migrate to the United States. Now, one of the landing pads for most of these Germans was the area of Missouri. Now, we all know that New York was a place where a large number of immigrants came. But the second most visited place for immigrants was New Orleans. So the immigrants would come to New Orleans. They would get on a boat that would take them up to St. Louis. And then from St. Louis, they would spread out in all directions. Now, a popular landing site would be along the Missouri River. Now, this is from a German school in Montgomery County. Montgomery County was the landing spot for German Protestants. Now, if you were to go to Gasconade County, which is just right across the river, this would be Herman primarily, you would be finding places for German Catholics. Back in Germany, Otto von Bismarck proposes that the fastest way to unify Germany is to give Germans a reason to fight. And in 1863, Bismarck will persuade Emperor Frederick William to declare war on the Austrians. Now, this is what we call the 7 Weeks' War. It occurred during our American Civil War. And the Germans had always been interested in our Civil War, and they discovered that the Union was winning battles because of the use of trains. It is the Germans who will use trains to defeat the Austrians. Now, basically, this war was fought over Denmark. Who would have the economic control of Denmark and the duchies around it? Well, we need to put down that this is a great German victory. The railroad is going to move men very quickly, and soon there will be a peace, and the German Confederation will have the economic right to deal with all of the lands in and around Denmark. The Germans and the French are also disagreeing on the land along the Rhine River. In 1871, we will fight the Franco-Prussian War. Now, one of the results of the Franco-Prussian War is Emperor Napoleon III will be forced to abdicate. German troops will invade France. They will defeat the French, and they will force the French to pay huge sums of money as reparation. The Germans laid claim to the land called Alsace and Lorraine. Now, this is a land that is on the Rhine River that has been claimed by both the French and the Germans. The Germans will capture the land, but they knew that just capturing the land would not be good enough. And so German forces are going to press all the way to Paris. They're going to lay siege to Paris. Now, Emperor Napoleon III will be forced to abdicate and go into exile, and the French will have to adopt a new government called the Third Republic. By the way, we're in the Third Republic right now. The Germans will use the German use of its military will be studied by many countries, including the United States. Some of the tactics that were used during the Franco-Prussian War are still used today. Again, the French were required to pay huge reparations. Now, this will come back to haunt the Germans during World War II. Now, this here is a video about the Franco-Prussian War. It was during the Franco-Prussian War that we have a change in leadership. The Emperor William will die, and his son Wilhelm. Now I'm going to have to change this slide for the class because I got William and I should have William. Wilhelm is going to be given a new title called Kaiser, and he is going to appoint Bismarck as his chancellor. Now, it's during the Franco-Prussian War that all of Germany will be unified, and economically and politically, Germany will become a juggernaut in Europe. Tomorrow, we're going to look at the Italians.